From the DMZ to the NATO front, this is CRN.
Hello, and welcome to the Kershner Files. Well, hello, and welcome to Episode 2 of the Kershner Files, formerly the preparedness show of the lightning round. We are in... where did it go? It is August 23rd. Am I sure? Yeah. Am I right? Yes! It's August 23rd. I've been having a hell of a week. From a work perspective, just non-stop meetings, and oddly enough, I normally record the show before I start my work day, but my work days have been starting earlier and earlier, so I didn't get a chance to do that. And when that doesn't pan out, I usually try to do it like during my lunch break or when I have a break between meetings, if I'm not, if something isn't urgent or anything like that. But the last, all 3 days, I just finished my work day for my employer, but all 3 days there wasn't I had maybe 5 minutes here or there, or like yesterday I had a meeting ended early, shockingly, and I had a random like 20 minutes, and I got the sense the meeting was going to end early, so I put in an online order, and that 20 minutes afforded me enough time to go to the restaurant, pick up my takeout order, and then come back. I should have just had, something here at the house, save some money. I got a little, dorm fridge in the garage, and I have stocked that with, meal replacement shakes and stuff like that. And I actually, what I did was, I have one for breakfast, I have one for lunch, and that, if I do that for 2-3 weeks, I usually drop a good 15 pounds. So I should probably do that. Anyway, no, it was just something I just thought of. So it's August 23rd. It's Wednesday. It's episode 2 of the rebranded Kershner Files preparedness show. We are in week 135 of the illegitimate, fraudulently elected idiot. And we currently have 439 days until the presidential election. Tonight is the first GOP debate for people that are vying to become the Republican nominee for president. Donald Trump is not going to be there. I'm assuming, well, he's saying that he's not going because he's so far ahead, but I think it has more to do with his fourth indictment in Georgia. And, anyway, everybody's got a pretty strong opinion about that guy. They either love him or they hate him. I didn't love him. I thought he could have been more presidential in certain situations and not being so quick to, throttle somebody online, or, they talked bad about me, so now I'm going to give them a funny little nickname or something. That just was childish, and it wasn't needed. I think that his legacy would have not been tarnished or tainted. There's a tsetse fly or something in here. If he'd have just shown more restraint. And that's what he says. That's what he's promised to do if he gets a second shot at the White House. Assuming that the Democrats don't unleash another pandemic and bring back all of the voting drop boxes and all of that business that they pulled in the 2020 election. Do have some updates for you. I've been getting information from Amazon because I have the 5-part book series, which is fiction, and I have the 2 nonfiction books. And when I go in here and I go look at the lifetime orders for each of the books, I like to check on it periodically, but because this is the preparedness show, I wrote this book, Home Remedy. So I check, and I get little reports, right? You know, it tells me I've got a royalty check coming this month or whatever. And I have, to date, I have sold over 1,800 copies of Home Remedies, poultices, salves, and tinctures. And when I go in and I look at, and that's in no small part thanks to you guys. But I go in here and I can go look and see approximately, if I go back to June. So it's always 2 months in arrears. So in the month of June, I will receive a royalty check. And the way Amazon does it is they have different, I don't want to call it accounts, but they have different DBAs, doing business as, in each of these different countries. So instead of just getting one check or one direct deposit, I get a direct deposit from the United States Amazon. I get one from Japan, Germany, France, Canada, Australia, Mexico, and the UK. So that book, Home Remedies, Poultices, Salves, and Tinctures, is selling all over the world. And that is just remarkable to me. And I just wanted to say thank you. You guys have really stoked the sales by going out there and buying the book. So there's 2 things. One is an article and another is more of there's 3 things. First is kind of a health thing. I'm fine. I'm not sick or dying or anything. But about 2 weeks ago, my wife has this vision for this kind of shelter grotto house thing that she wants to put just outside of our back door so that she can stay sheltered from wind and rain and snow when we take the dog out. And she has this vision. She wants me to build this thing out of pallets, and it's a whole thing. Well, she was on her summer break, so she was headed to the pool club, and because she was going to go enjoy some time in the water, and it was pretty hot. And she called me and she said, "Hey, there's a pallet on the street ready for trash pickup a few blocks north of us. Go get it." So I was like, okay, fine. Because I knew she had this vision. And I picked up the pallet. It was, but it was a double pallet. I will say it was a double pallet. And I picked it up and I went to go put it in the bed of my truck. And one of the corners got caught on the wheel well. And when I went to kind of move it, I felt something in my back just went pop, pop. And I was like, ooh, that's not going to be good. That was on Wednesday. 2 days later, we were moving my daughter into her dorm for her senior year at college. And it was the most uncomfortable car ride, 3 hours round trip. But I could not get comfortable. My back was right in my lower left back, And I had forgotten all about the palate. And I was like, man, maybe I've got a kidney stone or something. And, it just this burning sensation. And it just, I couldn't get any relief. And then a few days later, that pain went, down the back of my leg, down the front of my leg. It wrapped around my hip. And, it was debilitating. And, come to find out, I had done something and aggravated my sciatic nerve. So you can see over my right shoulder, over there, is my new package of Relief Factor. I've taken it before, and I've always gotten the 30-day quick start or the 3-week quick start, for $20 or whatever. You hear the commercials all the time. Well, I'll tell you what. The package showed up on Wednesday. No, the package showed up the following Saturday. So I heard it on Wednesday. The following Saturday, the package showed up. And, the instructions say take 3 packets a day for the first week, and then 2 packets a day after that. And you hear Hugh Hewitt talking about it all the time on Conservative Talk Radio. They're one of their sponsors and what have you. So, so that was Saturday. So now it's Wednesday, and the pain is almost completely gone. Any inflammation and soreness that I had in my back, the sciatic nerve. Only when I quickly do a change of direction does it seem to aggravate it. But by and large, I'd say it's 95% gone inside of a week. I highly recommend it. I'm not being paid by them. I'm not a spokesman. I'm not I'm wholeheartedly endorsing it, but I'm not getting paid to do so. The 3-week quick start is $20. And then you basically, to get it, you got to have your credit card on file. The thing that always makes me stop taking it is it's $80 a month if you continue with the subscription, and it's auto shipped every month. Boom, 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 and it's $80 plus shipping and handling. Comes up to like $85, something like that. But and that's an expense. And I got 2 kids in college, and whatever. I always balk at that. But I'm telling you what, I'm turning 50 next month, and stuff's starting to hurt. So I think I'm going to have to keep with it just to, enjoy the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to. But I will say that I did have a hard time reconciling myself with the fact that I'm no longer 22, 23 years old. And, everything that I did, all of the movements that I did to pick up the pallet, put it in the back of the truck, move it over the wheel well, all these things, 20-something-year-old Dave would not have hurt me at all. Because I was still, I was building houses, I was physically fit, I was active, I was moving around, But now 50-year-old Dave, 49-year-old Dave, it's like, ooh, I have to think twice about some of these activities. Is that something that I actually want to do? Is that something I want to pick up? Without a dolly or, asking my wife, hey, let's carry this thing together. It looks a little heavy for me. Even though I'm like, just pick it up. Don't be a wuss, just pick it up. So, preparedness and self-sufficiency, physical fitness is very much a part of that. And I think a lot of people discount the fact that, like myself, they're no longer in their 20s. They're not capable of some of the activities. Your strength has diminished in the ensuing 25, 30 years. So you have to account for those things, and physical fitness is a huge part of that, especially if you're, if an EMP goes off and I don't have a vehicle that is going to be old enough and immune to, say, an EMP, because it's got computers and all kinds of fun stuff in there, and and I got to hoof it. Well, I'll tell you what, I I hope my bike works really well because I'm going to be riding my bike. So that's going to be a little less strenuous than, say, I got to walk 25 miles to my first bug out location. But you're going to get in shape really fast because you're going to have to catch your food, or you're going to have to stay on the move so that you don't get rounded up by, roving gangs and miscreants and what have you, to your worst possible scenario that you're trying to avoid. And, you're trying to keep air in your lungs and your heart beating, you're going to stay on the move maybe to get out of the city limits, get out into less populated areas or whatever the case may be. You have to account for your age. You have to account for your infirmities. And you have to count, if you're insulin dependent, it's not going to go well for you. And you may be able to get to where you need to go, but once your insulin runs out, it's a slow death. And it's going to suck. And that's what I'm going to say about that. The other thing was, I think that given the current political climate, I think that it might be wise for people of this particular mindset to stop talking to people about preparedness and self-sufficiency. If you have already broached the subject with them and they were not receptive because, hey, things are going good, the Trump years, the stock market's up, paychecks are up, inflation doesn't exist, unemployment's almost non-existent. If you were talking to them during the good times and they're still not receptive when you were talking to them during the first 135 weeks of this idiot in chief during the bad times, the lean times, if they weren't receptive in either one of those, stop talking to people. Stop offering advice. Because every time, and this is, maybe it's just me, because I am such a political hound and, news wonk, and I'm always trying to stay on top of things. And I think that's why it's so hard for me to kind of stay concentrated because, I read this article about this, and I read this over here, and I did this and this, but I want to talk about X and these other thoughts and these other things that other bits of information are coming in, and it just is sometimes it's debilitating, and it just being constantly inundated with information. But my point is, for me, what I am seeing, what I am feeling when it comes to these people that were not receptive during the Barry Obama years, during the Trump years, during these Biden years, and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, smile and nod, because if they start lamenting the high cost of food, normally I would say, well, maybe I ought to have a garden, or if you're out in the country, maybe you can get some chickens, or goats, and maybe you could put in an orchard, or whatever it is that I would have normally said. I'm not saying it anymore. I'm like, I hear you, brother, and that's it. That's all I'm walking away. I'll just, I'll give you a little nod of agreement, and that's that. Okay, fine. No, I hear you. That's what they were saying on the news. Yeah. That's it. I'm quote unquote done recruiting. I'm done trying to help people in my life, especially when these are the same people that voted for this idiot in chief, lost their minds for 4 years while Trump was in office, and these are people that I either worked with or their extended family or whatever. I'm not helping you. I'm done. Don't come to my front door because it's not going to go well for you. That's it. I'm done. And I think that you guys out there listening to the podcast might be feeling the same thing. You might need to be looking in the mirror and saying, look, I tried. I gave it maximum effort. I tried on multiple occasions to point things out, or I offered up books. I've got Dave Kershner's Preparing to Prepare book, whatever. Here, take a read of that. If they're like, nah, and they push it away, or they're like, oh, I don't have time to read. The kids' activities and schedules and yada yada yada. You're done. Just say you're done, and stop trying to help people. And I say this because of the article that I have here, and it's something that that's always been in the back of my mind, particularly because I'm a quote unquote personality, right? So I'm a known actor, if you will. I've written not necessarily anti-government books, but I've written books about this nation's downfall. I have strong opinions about politics. I have certain proclivities that are putting a target on me. I've got a podcast, 2 podcasts actually, and and I'm a known quantity. I think when it comes to, if federal agencies, any 3-letter federal agency happens to come into my suburb because of a calamity, particularly FEMA, because they're the most ill-managed branch of the government. They have a $20 billion operating budget, and they can't see the forest to save the trees. These guys, I don't know what they're doing. And they have not been shown in a positive light since they botched Hurricane Katrina. The article I'm talking about here, this is it's titled "You Need This to Survive a FEMA Takeover." It was written by James Walton on Ask a Prepper, and it was published on August 15th of this year. And it's basically a rundown of what FEMA can and can't do to start, and then it goes into how you can kind of subvert and survive and kind of go under the radar of a FEMA takeover in your area. We're seeing this today in Maui, and oh my goodness, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but it's video, and I don't know if it's real. It looks real, but it could be faked. It could be AI manipulated video. I don't know. But there are videos of how direct energy weapons work, basically laser beams, and they work on a certain color spectrum, and they were showing how all this stuff that was charred, and then there's like a lone random blue trash can, and then they showed all these different color cloths, and they showed the laser going over, the red, the orange, the green, and then it hit the blue, and then nothing happened to the blue, and then it went on to, purple or white or black, and it, the laser's burning through all of them, and it just went up and down and up and down, and every time that it got to the blue piece of cloth, it never damaged it at all. And so they're saying that this DEW weapon, direct energy weapon, presumably fired from space, I don't know, and that's why everything that was blue was still standing after all these fires, and I grew up next to Fort Bragg, and they would do controlled burns out there every summer, and they would scorch these wooded areas and get rid of all the underbrush and what have you, and so I know what this looks like, right? And then you go see pictures of Maui and this area that supposedly had these I don't know what they're attributing it to, lightning strikes or an energized power lines during a drought and high winds. There's so much information out there. I can't make heads or tails of it right now, but it just seems like it went in a very specific path and somehow managed to not cross the road where the multi-million-dollar homes were. And then when the million-dollar homes ended and it became, local shops or, smaller, more affordable housing for locals or whatever, all of a sudden that fire, well, it could jump the road then, and it took out all of that stuff. And, it was everything was very suspicious about that. Well, and I tell you that so that I can tell you this. FEMA's there, and they are actively stopping all donations that are not government supplied. So the lower 48, people are shipping stuff to Hawaii, and they're flying stuff into Hawaii. FEMA, if it didn't come from the Red Cross or a government agency like a FEMA, they're quarantining it. They're shipping it off to these random corners of the airport and the docks, and they're not allowing the stuff to be distributed. And then you see actually pretty heartwarming videos. You're on an island. There's a lot of boats. So what they're doing to get around all of the FEMA lockdowns and the FEMA prohibitions on supplies is they're loading everything onto boats. They're sneaking in to the airport and onto the docks, and they're grabbing all the equipment, the gear, the supplies, the food, the water, and they're putting it onto small craft. And then they're taking it to the areas that are most affected, and then the locals are coming out into the surf to receive the goods from the boat. So they're and it's like, it's like a fire watering line. Here's the bucket of water, here's the bucket of water, and it's just people just moving stuff off these boats, and then the boats take off, they go get more goods, and they come back. So people are doing workarounds because FEMA's locking things down. And this article says, what FEMA can't do, or what FEMA cannot do, is what this section is titled. It says, let's start with the things that FEMA cannot do so you know what you are preparing for. If we face something like a grid down collapse in this nation where no one has power, then you can forget about FEMA altogether, which I think is true. Even with a $20 billion budget, they have no capacity to touch every city, let alone rural towns across America. You'll be on your own, and you will not have to worry about FEMA pulling up, as they will be totally stretched trying to hold the nation's largest cities together. FEMA and the National Guard are incapable of rendering aid or even touching base with 300 million people spread out across the entire nation. What FEMA can do is the next section, and it says, following Hurricane Katrina, FEMA brought in 30,000 National Guard troops to help with all sorts of efforts on the ground. Search and rescue was a massive undertaking, but there was also disarmament of the population happening. They were confiscating weapons, is what he's saying. The spokesman for the local police department in 2005 said that there were 552 confiscated guns being stored at the local police station following Hurricane Katrina. Hopefully, you already live in an area that is removed from the likelihood of a major evacuation or disaster that would affect millions of people. This is the kind of disaster where FEMA can move in with power. And at its most oppressive, FEMA will be in a targeted area with lots of people. So, gun confiscation is one thing that they can do. They can show up with National Guard. These are people that are supposed to be helping their countrymen, but they are under orders to do specific things, and sometimes those orders are unconstitutional, and they don't know any better because they're usually younger people that wanted to serve in the military but really was just kind of to get through college, and they weren't really going to make it a career, and they're in the National Guard, But James goes on to say, and this is kind of what I was getting at with the people in Maui with the use of the smaller craft is you need intel to survive a FEMA takeover. And that's the title of this section. If there's one thing that can help you above all else when you are preparing to survive a FEMA takeover, it's intel. You need to know what is going on in your area of operation, and that is before and after a disaster. You need to open those intel channels now and not wait until the disaster or this plan is not going to work out. And then he goes into how you can kind of get your intel. You can get it from local resources by, befriending people on the police force or in the fire department, your local elected officials, whatever they're putting out literature-wise in terms of like where I live, there's a monthly kind of magazine that goes out, and there's a message usually from the mayor, and there's messages from different members of the city council and things like that. So that's one way to kind of get your intel to understand what's going on in your area. You can actually you can ask, what for me, we have we don't have hurricanes. We get leftover remnants of a hurricane. Usually it's a windstorm, or maybe we might get an occasional thunderstorm. But we've been, we can get some pretty strong windstorms go through here, 70-mile-an-hour winds. We lost power for a week when we had one of those in 2007 or 8, something like that. And leftover hurricane kind of came up the Mississippi River, and then the winds pushed it into, Ohio and Indiana and Kentucky, and then it kind of went out the Northeast. But we got 70-mile-an-hour inline winds. We lost power for a week. The point of that is, you can ask about, what are the preparedness plans? What are the disaster plans for, if we have a massive blizzard, if we have another huge windstorm, both of those can take out power. An ice storm, if we can't get it cold enough and we get all of the freezing rain and ice, that stuff bows power lines, weighs down power lines, snaps the telephone poles, power poles, etc. So you can ask these questions and kind of get an understanding of what the standing response is going to be if FEMA shows up in your area for one of these scenarios, like a tornado. So we can get tornadoes, really powerful thunderstorms, high winds. We can get blizzards. We can get ice storms, and we're not really an area that's going to get to a point where there's a drought long enough that we could have forest fires and fires like you saw out there in Maui. We're never going to be that dry around here. So you can also get your ham radio license. Actually, that course, PrepperNet's Prepping Academy, is one of the shows that I put up over the weekend under the Contra Radio Network banner. And they had their most recent episode was talking about how to get your ham radio license. So you guys might want to check that out. You might have to scroll back a few days in the Podbean archives or wherever you're getting your podcast, Apple or Google Podcasts, whatever. So definitely you should take that out. One of the other things that you can do is, if there is a disaster, you can mark your home the same way that FEMA is marking houses that have been searched. FEMA's not going to search the same place twice. So what they do is they put a big X, usually in spray paint, somewhere on the house. And usually it's on a garage door, something that's highly visible. And you can use those markings to keep people away from your home if you know what they mean. FEMA search and rescue markings are usually spray painted on a building after they've searched it. It starts with a red X. The top section, so if you have an X like this, right? So if you see my camera, if you can see the video feed, I got that in my hands up. There's an X. This top section, forming the chalice, if you will, the top section is the date and time that the search took place. In the left-hand section is the team and time entered. So if it was Team 2 and they went in at 10 a.m., then they would put the appropriate markings in there. And I should say, let me clarify, in the top section where it's the date searched, it's also got the time exited. So in the left section, they're showing the time that they got in, and the top section showing the time that they got out. And in the right-hand section is a notation for any hazards that were encountered when they went and searched the home. And in the bottom section, so the bottom of the X, is a number if there are any victims. So you can mark your house to kind of lead them astray to say, hey, this house has already been searched. As soon as they see all those markings, they just go on to the next house. They're not going to go, and like you said, they're not going to check it twice. So, but I'll post the link to the article. You can read it in its entirety. But my biggest thing when it comes to FEMA, and he doesn't really mention this, but and it kind of goes into the same vein as the confiscation of weapons, is the confiscation of your cash, whether that's food, water, medical supplies, ammo, firearms, obviously. That's my biggest concern is, I'm not going to be outside with my AR-15 strapped to my chest, or a shoulder holster with, a sidearm or a thigh rig, or I'm not going to go outside and expose myself in that way. So the only way that they would find anything in my house is if they actually came into my house and did a search and took these things. That's my biggest concern, is that, hey, resources are limited. Everybody has to give up everything that they've got. Screw you. I'm not giving you squat. I will hide it all before I give you a single bean. I'm not doing it. I was prepared for me and my family to survive this crisis without the need of any government assistance or intervention. The fact that my neighbors didn't do that is not on me. That's a them problem. That's a you problem, because I'm not giving you anything. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about physical fitness, making sure that is part of your regimen, that you're taking care of yourself, mind and body and soul, and, recognizing that you're getting older. You can't necessarily do the things that you could have done in your 20s. I wanted to talk a little bit about this FEMA stuff, and just general preparedness, and not. I think the time has come for us to just, what? If you're in the right mindset, preparedness and self-sufficiency mindset, I honestly think, that for me, the window's closed. I'm not going to be trying to help people anymore. They're going to have to really convince me that they're earnest and they want to start doing some of the things that I'm suggesting. I'm not going to them to ask if they need help. I'm not interjecting commentary when they lament the cost of food or supply chain, and I'm done. For me, that window's closed. So that's what I want to talk about today. So that's the end of episode 2 of the Kershner Files. I'll be back on the weekend with episode 141 of the lightning round, and we'll talk about the week that was, and Sleepy Joe literally falling asleep in Maui during a speech about the victims. And this guy, I just don't know what to do with him anymore. I did get a notification that they are likely going to begin consideration for articles of impeachment against the idiot-in-chief when they get back into session after their summer break. So, anyway. All right, folks. That's it for me. Have a good week. Be good. Stay safe. Keep your head on a swivel. I'm out.
Happy Hunger Games. And may the odds be ever in your favor.